welcome to another adventure in Guyanese literature. Guyanese literature is a rather new literature, young literature, but it is constantly renewing itself every day. And as such, we need to have periodical checks, periodical look at the literature as it unfolds, as it develops, and then the we be induced into, as I said, the adventure of Guyanese literature. Janice, your first novel, Timepiece, won the Guyana Prize for Literature in its inaugural year,
87.
1987.
It won the
What
prize for the first novel.
first book?
First novel, yes.
Yeah. What has happened to Janice since then?
Oh, a lot.
Like,
Um, well, I published a collection of, a second novel after that.
mhm.
And then I published a collection of stories,
That was
The
the
God,
second novel was
The
the
Last
last
English Plantation.
English Plantation.
And then I published a third book, which was a collection of stories, The Godmother and Other Stories.
Yes. Mhm.
And
And
then, jumping several years, I published the third novel, um, Chinese Women. I am now writing my fourth novel,
mhm.
which I'll give you a preview of. It's called The Last Ship. And I have completed the first draft. And I am now working on completing it.
Most of these novels, most of your writing is set in Guyana.
Yes.
Most of them is set in
Up to
Guyana.
now, all of it is set in, actually in the short stories, some are set in England,
Okay.
where I live now.
Let's go back to that year, 1987. You were also the very first woman writer to have won the prize.
Mm.
A significant recognition, wouldn't you say?
Well, yes, I guess so. But what I was honored by wasn't the fact that I was the first woman, but the fact that I had won the prize, and I was recognized by my own country.
Yes, yeah,
That was the greatest honor.
yeah. But in my research, that is very significant to me, that you were the first woman writer to have won the prize.
Yes.
Because I think later we'll touch on women writers,
Okay.
how they were perhaps slow to get off the block for various reasons. For
Yes.
various reasons, because of their support for their counterparts and other thing. Let's now locate Janice Lowe Shinebourne. You were born in Kanji, Berbice.
In Rose Hall
Rosal Kanji,
Yes.
Berbice. And you attended Berbice
High School. Yes.
and University of Guyana. You did some work as a reporter in Georgetown before migrating
Yes.
to the UK in 1970. While in Guyana, you had started writing, getting involved in a group of writers and a literary publication, Expression.
Yes.
Let's look at that group of writers. I mean, that's your formative years in Guyana. Who were those writers? What was the magazine about?
Well, it was called Expression, as you said. How did it start? It was started by teachers at Queen's College and St. Stanislaus, which were the two premier schools in the colonial days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the teachers were Victor Ramraj at Queen's College, who spotted talented pupils like John Rickford and Brian Chan, and singled them out for their literary gifts and talents.
Mm-hmm.
I think both wrote poetry, which they used to show him. And then at St. Stanislaus, there was an English VSO called Brian Cotton, who noticed John Agard and Mark McWatt, names you'll know,
Yes, yes.
and singled those out. And they were so talented and passionate about literature that he formed a club where they all contributed so much money, and then he would buy popular paperbacks for them to read,
Wow. Wow.
like The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. But they were passionate, so passionate about literature that these teachers wanted to foster their talent. So they encouraged them to read and to write. And there was such an outpouring of poetry from these students, they were mainly poets, that they decided, Brian Cotton, there was another teacher there, a local guy, N.D. Williams, and they decided to start a magazine where these poems could be published, and they called it Expression.
Right. Lovely name. Lovely name. You were fortunate. I mean, you guys, that group was fortunate because the paperback revolution had just started.
Yes,
And it was
the modern
easy.
period.
It was easy to get your hands on the, cheap books because of the paperback
Yes,
revolution.
absolutely.
So you're
I
able
never
to
thought
tr-
of that, but you are right, Petamber.
Yeah.
And that Booker's, which was then the Guyana stores, used to be Booker's.
Mm-hmm.
The place to be when you were young, to sit and pose on Saturday mornings, was the Booker's snack bar.
Where the
The bookshop was near the snack
located.
bar.
Right.
And there were these carousels of paperbacks. And we used to go and buy our snacks, patties and cheese rolls, and drink orange juice and pose. And then when we've done that, we would then go and look at books. So it was a culture at that time that valued books.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And so we were all well read. We were up to date with the latest classics, William Faulkner. But we got, as you said, the latest paperbacks, and it fed our appetite for literature and writing. So, and I had left school and had done a few jobs, and then I moved to Georgetown to work at the bank in Water Street, Barclays Bank. But I wanted to carry on my formal education, so I decided I would go to university, the University of Guyana, but I needed to get my A-level in English.
Yeah.
So I went for private lessons to Milton Dripall, who was teaching at Queen's College and was a good friend of Victor.
He was involved. That's right.
And I dared to show him some short fiction I had written. And he said, Janice, you should get these published in Expression. And I will put you on to Brian Chan, who does all the work. You know, he selects the poems and he types it up, and had a Gestetner machine at the time and used to print it. And Brian walked in while I was sitting there, and he said, Brian, this is Janice Lowe. She has some stories to show you, and I think you should publish them. So I met Brian. We got on very well. He used to work at the British Council.
You remember the British Council Library?
Yes,
also?
I used to go to the library.
Wow, amazing. The British Council Library, JFK Library.
Yes, we had lots of libraries and bookshops. So Brian introduced me to his friends, John Agard and Terence Roberts, who was also there.
Yeah. And that's it. You were also published in the magazine produced, or the journal produced by the History and Arts Council.
Yes, I wrote a story for them.
Kai, was it Kai?
Yes.
Kai.
I won a prize there
You won
for
a
a
prize
story.
there. Right. So writing started in Guyana. Let's go to the UK. What was the scene like when you moved there, and how did
I moved there in 1970.
What was it like? How did you get involved in the literary situation there?
Well, I got married, and we had a flat in North London in a place called Crouch End. And literally down the road was a New Beacon bookshop and publishers. So I used to jump in the bus and go there every Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And I met John LaRose and his wife Sarah
John
White.
LaRose was responsible for that, and yeah, go on.
But John knew about Expression,
Uh-huh.
because when he came here in 1972 for Carrie Festa, he met us.
And
he had,
Salaki and all of them was it.
and he said to us, to myself and John Agard and all, if you're ever in London, come and see me, which I did. And I found there quite a thriving literary culture. I would meet writers walking into the bookshop. We were all standing there browsing.
Mm-hmm.
And John, I picked up the Trinidad and Tobago Review, which Ken Ramchand wrote for and reviewed books and so. And I had taken there this novel called Timepiece.
Mm-hmm.
And because I saw this newspaper there, I started to send bits of it, extracts, to the Trinidad and Tobago Review. And Ken spotted these. Jeremy Pointing, who was going to start publishing P. Paltry, saw it and made up his mind then that he was going to publish this novel unseen.
Yeah.
So that was important.
Good, good, good.
And John started the Black Book Fair. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Every year he would have this enormous book fair, and writers from all over the world came in. And writers from all over England and the Caribbean would come in for the book fair, and that is where I met people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Your first novel and subsequent major works came after you have migrated.
Yes.
This means that you were writing from
England.
a distance. From a distance. You're writing from a distance. Was it easy for you, having moved away, to deal with some of the issues of discrimination and exploitation?
Yes, because John was quite a political person. I mean, there was a strong political consciousness.
John LaRose?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
And so this book fair, his involvement with books had a very strong political edge. He was a political activist in London. I mean, black youths were being discriminated against on the streets,
Yes.
picked up by the police and searched. And he started the Black Parents movement. So to be involved with John and his literary culture was to be political too.
Yeah.
And eventually I became a political and cultural activist because of the influence of the Black Book Fair, John LaRose.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So in a way, my political consciousness was raised in that environment.
So you're able to see Guyana in a different
True.
context.
Yes,
And you're able to write
yes.
about some of those issues.
C.L.R. James was there the time he was alive, and I used to meet him. John always held events in the bookshop, book launches, writers' reading, and I would run across people in almost a casual manner.
Yeah.
So I had a sense of a rich literary culture from the Caribbean with a political edge to it.
That's what's sort of missing, We're trying, not to say we're not trying, we're trying, but we need that culture, that literary culture. It was there in the time of A.J. Seymour,
Yes.
Norman Cameron,
Yes.
and other.
When expression started, it was the birth of nationalism too. There was pressure on us to write about the local scene
Yeah,
and to use Creole,
yeah.
which I wouldn't say expression responded to in a big way. But I began to write about the place that I grew up in, Kanji.
Yes.
The first thing I wrote was called Water and Trees, which was about the new forest near where I used to live.
Okay. Okay.
So I began to try and paint the local scene in my writing because of the influence of nationalism
Right. Good.
in Guyana.